Welcome to the Loyal Locals podcast. My name is Jerry Jimenez. Welcome in. I love this song. What's up, Drew? What's happening?
What's up, man?
What are you doing?
Just over here in my corner, living life, man. Just another week down in 2021. So
Hey, but speak louder so we can all hear you. Not just.
I like to be quiet, and this is my ASMR episode.
Shout out to your wife who's letting us record. She actually doesn't know you're recording
ASMR.
So we're just gonna keep it really low.
Really low.
Welcome everybody to episode 24. We have two guests today, Drew and I. We have Steve in Phoenix. What's up, Steve from Phoenix? Welcome live to the Loyal Locals podcast. How are you, sir?
First-time caller, long-time listener. Glad to be here. No, this is I'm happy to be on again this week. I am in Phoenix for work. My first work trip of 2021 and my first work trip since 2019. I was a frequent work traveler, and the pandemic also obviously halted that. I had put it off as long as I possibly could, but work is work. So I wore my mask this morning. I did everything I could to be safe, and now I'm in my hotel room recording this podcast. So here we are.
Like you thought for sure. By the way, for those of you that don't know, which you should know this, happy birthday to your baby boy. By the way,
Oh, happy birthday!
Yesterday, yes.
Happy birthday.
I cannot believe it's been a year. It's unbelievable.
I think all of us are like, why? How did this happen? That the year just went by. But here's the thing: you thought you were gonna go to Arizona and be like, yes, I'm gonna get away from the kid. I'm gonna get to sleep, and here we are, keeping your ass up awake like super late. It's what we do for all of you that are listening.
Oh, this is fun.
No, we're excited, man. Today's is a great day. We were gonna have some famous people on, but you know what? We decided, hey, let's just go to the bottom of the barrel, scrape it up, see what we can find. Finally, somebody said yes. At first, they didn't want to come on. It wasn't like something that was really, like
Never.
This person really was like, nah, I don't want to come on the show. But for the first time ever on this show, and probably not going to be the last because of how much crap we give him. But Mr. Tom Blick.
Hey, how's it going? Long time listener, first time caller.
Welcome. Come on down to the Loyal Locals podcast. We're excited.
It's great to be here. Really had to dig deep for that one person.
Oh man, no. I'm just joking, man. Dude, we've been trying to get you on, trying to make it work. Today was like super last minute. We're like, hey, should we? I kind of feel bad. We're all like, hey, it's just going to be the three of us doing this. You'll probably see if Tom is awake.
So what's funny is I'm probably the easiest to schedule since I don't have a job.
Well.
Oh, there you go.
No,
Yeah.
We need to call to the bullpen. I sent you a GIF. I was like, hey,
You
man,
did.
we
You
need
did.
to
We
be
added
warming
you.
up. You're always there. He's always waiting in the bullpen. He's just been like, yo, coach, put me in. So
I'm ready to
But-
play.
We
I
are
was like, is this
picking
a call
back
I
up
think it is? I was like, we're
our.
going right now. Yeah.
We are picking back up our tour of leadership. We had Kim and Jason and Eileen on before Tom now this episode, and we are going to continue that because we want our listeners to get to know the rest of leadership. So Mr. Blick, you are our director of stadium operations.
Mhm.
Obviously your role in 2020 was safe to say put on hold. I'll put it that way. So
Yeah.
here we are, and looking forward to 2021, and I'm super stoked for what is hopefully to come.
I'm excited too. 2 games under my belt.
Yep.
Best 2 games of my life.
You're like a pro at this point.
Exactly.
we have-
Exactly.
the weird thing is like we say this over and over, and we're so ready to just keep this going, but we're all still learning. So it's going to be really cool to see what we can accomplish still. Even after those 2 games, I mean, you did such a fantastic job. So obviously kudos to you. And we're going to kind of jump into a little bit of what you do and what your position within the locals, leadership is. We're probably going to touch a little bit on some of the players that we got because we haven't really talked about that too much. We've had a few a guest, and we talked a little bit, but we'll jump into some of that, and then just get to know you, man. We're not really like super organized on this one, but somehow, even when we come at this not organized, Steve manages to put together a spreadsheet for us like last minute as we're talking. He's like, "Oh yeah." So if you hear like tippity tappity in the background, that's
Only 2 charts this time.
yeah. Steven Phoenix.
Like you guys are trying to trash me, but I absorb this energy because this is so me.
We trash it because we're saying it's amazing. It's like we're saying you're somehow always prepared with a doc. We're like we didn't even know till we were recording 5 minutes ago, and it's like he had just an emergency doc ready to go.
Dude, I was like, he's like, yeah, I'm typing it into the doc. I was like, what document? I sent it to you. I emailed it to you.
And in your email this whole time, Jerry. Didn't you know I knew we were going to record yesterday before we even knew. Yeah.
Hey,
it's just
Tom,
Mind blown.
Tom, we caught you a little bit off guard, obviously.
Yeah.
You know a little bit of what we do in the beginning of the show. Are you drinking something? Are you sipping?
Seeing as it is a Tuesday, 11:30, and I have no beer, no.
All right. Well, we're gonna drink some for you.
It's an oversight. We'll have to rectify that.
I'll remember for the next time I get on in 2 years.
We'll try to remember. Steve, what are you? What are you in Phoenix?
So on my way home from work, I stopped by Santan Brewing and I picked up a crowler of their Moon Juice IPA. Very good.
Yeah,
very good. Wow. We have high standards in San Diego, and I have been traveling to Phoenix for the last 4-ish years on and off for work, and they're one of the better breweries that I've been to.
Especially IPAs. We're super picky about this. So cool for you to say that.
Yep, pretty good.
Yeah.
I'd say like 6.5 out of 10, something like that. Pretty good.
Wow. I've never had a IPA that didn't taste like gutter water. Wow.
Wow. I need to get that up on the board, dude. Wow. Drew, what are you drinking?
I went to Steve's fridge since he wasn't home and stole some pizza port. So nice. I stole some Taste for Adventure out of Steve's backyard. It's great can. Kind of evokes some locals loyal kind of emotions on the can here, but just beautiful can art as usual, and just great solid IPA from those guys. It's the IPA Kings, IPA factory over there.
Yeah, you know, one thing that's funny is that every time that I seem to go and try to pick something new out, for whatever reason, there's a new beer with loyal colors now, like everywhere.
Like everywhere. It's the colors of the season.
I'm having dude, I'm having a Nitro Imperial Sour Ale with strawberries, cream, vanilla, and milk sugar from our buddies over at Creative Creature.
Ooh, yeah.
Shout out to them. By the way, we may be adding them to our beer lineup. Just
pretty exciting. What is our beer lineup currently, Jerry?
They're pretty much in. Just need to figure out some details. But Creative Creature, welcome to the family, guys. No, but this one's an 8% sour, so it's amazing. By the way, super good.
Oh, I was just saying, what's our beer lineup currently, Jerry? Cheers.
Oh yeah, we have 3 Punk Ales, we have Thorn, and we have Second Chance, and we're adding a Creative Creature, and working on a couple of more breweries to add to our kind of the membership deals that you get, right? When you are a member of the locals, you get exclusive deals at certain breweries that are our partners. And so, yeah, I'm excited to see what we can do for the 2021. If you haven't been taking advantage of that and you're members, I don't know what you're doing, but y'all should be drinking at these breweries and just support local in general. So,
we may come back to this, but while we're on memberships, we are talking internal to everybody listening, looking for information. We are talking things will be, more public in the next couple of weeks regarding memberships. We're trying to kind of figure out how this season's going to work out. It's very hard. Last year when we released memberships, it was pretty easy to promise things that we were going to deliver on. But this year, there's so much uncertainty that it's very hard for us to be like, yeah, you're going to get this, these and that, and you're going to do these events, because we just have no clue how things are going to go, right? Like, it's so hard to predict. So we don't want to promise things that we can't deliver on, but we also don't want to undersell what being a member of the locals means. Mm-hmm. So we're trying to kind of play that internally, have talks, and then try to ride that fence properly and come out with something in the next couple weeks. So stay tuned. I've said that for the last couple weeks, but things are still up in the air a little bit. So we're hoping to have some information soon.
It's an exciting time. It's kind of different, right? Last year it was very much, hey, we know what membership looks like because here's what a season normally looks like and what normally supporters groups look like. So it's just trying to ride that wave of what is a supporters group in 2021 and when we're going to start possibly a little bit different. Even if we can be in the stands, it will be very different, it seems like. And we'll talk about that with Tom in a little bit, possibly, and just kind of kick around some stuff. But yeah, it's an exciting time. So any ideas or any ways you think that we can engage you, just let us know moving forward. But as Steve said, we'll have more coming out on that, and just always, get in our ear and let us know what you want to see. That's what we're here for.
Yeah, 100%. I agree with that. So yeah, no, perfectly said, and we don't need to touch on that later. So check that off of our doc.
Perfect.
Tom, let's jump into it, man. I kind of want to get to know you a little bit more. The sport of soccer. I always like hearing kind of like when your first memory and your first kind of contact with the sport itself. When that happened, do you remember? And
I was a child, grade school. I don't remember what age. I remember playing in like the micro division, no goalies, basically no rules. Everyone's just farting around, kicking the ball, doing whatever. Played it a little bit growing up. Played it in grade school at Our Lady of Grace up until about 6th grade was my last year of that because the coach I had in 5th grade absolutely sucked. Didn't know what he was doing. I just didn't want to play for him. Played 1 year of club that sucked as well because the team sucked. But I took some years off. Going into college, I was the president of the club soccer team de facto. Just went in, said, hey, what do I have to do? Because the old one started it all, got everything set up, and then just promptly quit. So I just went in and said, hey, what do I do? And club sports director said this. I said, I'll think about it. And that somehow turned into me doing it, even though I never said yes. So I did that for 2 years. One of the greatest things I did in college, and then just been playing beer league indoor soccer since then, and watching Everton put me through depression.
So you're an Everton fan?
Yeah.
How did that come to be?
So I was still in college. I tweeted out that I was looking for a team to support in the EPL. I told
don't do that. Don't tweet that. I'm looking for a team in the EPL. All of a sudden, you just probably got attacked, is what I'm assuming.
It was like 2 or 3 of my friends tweeted back. I told myself internally I wasn't going to do a big 6 because everybody out here does the Uniteds, the cities, all of them. So I was like, that's off the table. I don't care what else. One of my buddies from St. Augustine said, hey, check out Everton. You might like the way they play. Checked out their roster, and great American goalie Tim Howard between the pipes. I'm like, that's the team. That was the team.
I can't let that go before we move on back to soccer. I did not know you went to Saints.
Yeah.
I went to uni / cathedral.
I think we're done here. No, I think it's been mentioned before that you went to uni.
There's a reason why Tom hasn't been on the show. I'm mentioned.
I knew there was something. No, I mean, friendly rivalry back in the day, but I did not know that. So I'm learning stuff here live on this podcast.
Learn something new every day.
Yeah. Cool.
Makes a lot of sense. I see the crew you roll with now. Yeah, that makes this all is coming together here. I get it. Jerry, sorry.
Oh no, I was just going to say that Everton is I think just the EPO in general. It's tough to like pick a team, and then once you pick it, you're just like this is who I'm with forever and ever. And like through the tough times and good times, I think Everton, regardless, is a fun team to follow. But I agree with you. I think the way that I came into Man U was because of friends too. Because my best friend, that's pretty much the team, and there was a lot of connections with like, Chicharito joining and that sort of thing. So it's like he came from Guadalajara into the EPO and all of that. So I think it kind of it leads you in a certain direction. So it's funny, just like everybody's story is so different. So thank you for sharing, man. That's pretty cool.
I think that's totally my case too with friends, is that even with Spurs, there was some personal connections, but it was really having that 1 or 2 friends that you knew you could get up at 4 or 5 in the morning with and be able to watch a game with, and they were actually going to stick it out, even if it was AVB Spurs, where it was just horrendous to watch post Bale, and you're just like, what are we doing? Like, what is this? Like, and Everton's had phases like that too, where you're like, where are we? What are we doing? And so it's hard when you have one of those clubs that are, kind of on that bubble, that are trying to reach for greatness and sometimes get there, but it's that fall is pretty hard. So it is that consistency of having that group and having that kind of stick through itiveness. So is there like a click in moment with Everton where you felt like it just kind of ascended for you in terms of fanship, or was it just kind of gradual of kind of like watching games every season and getting into it?
It was just watching games. I followed them a little bit. I never watched games until I came back from school and they were in Europa League. That was the 2017-18 season. So that's when I actually sat down, dedicated myself, get to know the players, get to know the team. And there's a motto that a lot of supporters have, that Everton supporters are born, not manufactured. And it feels that way. Like, I couldn't see myself going for any other team. It feels right.
Yeah. You're stuck in it for better or worse. You're just there, and it is who you are, and you are that person for sure. Steve, sorry.
Yeah, and I mean, I was gonna say, like, I'm waiting for that kind of pull. Like, I don't have an EPL team. I watch every Saturday. I watch every Sunday. I watch all the matches for the love of the sport. But I kind of refuse to like pick a team objectively. I'm kind of waiting for that, like, somebody to grab me in a different way, because I refuse to pick, like,
I'll grab
because I love the way Liverpool play, but the second that Mohamed Salah or Sadio Mane leave the club, like, what next? Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And what stuck to me so much is, like, one of my good friends, Paul Marshall, who I've known through the Outlaws and for years now, 5, 6, 7 years now. He went to Europe and he went to all those stadiums because he was like me. I mean, he did name a club and he's like, I want to support somebody. And he spent the time and the money, and he did like a big tour of England, and he's a West Ham fan now because he went to the Olympic Stadium and he went to a game and he fell in love with the culture and the atmosphere and the supporters, and they grabbed his attention and they grabbed his heart, and like, that's what I want. I refuse to be like, yeah, I'm a Spurs fan because I like the way Son Heung-min plays, or I'm a Man U fan because I love Bruno Fernandes. Like, those are great players, but those are temporary pieces of a club. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
And that's what I love so much about bringing it back to San Diego Loyal. Like, they represent San Diego and what they've done off the field. Not to mention, like I said, they represent my city that I grew up in. I'm so happy that we have a club now. So
the threads are real there, right? So like the threads for all of us feel real to our clubs at this point, because we've created we've woven those threads into us, as Tom was saying, and it feels right. But I think that for you, it's almost overexposed at this point, to where there's like too much exposure.
Yeah, that's a good point.
To the EPL, where it's like, it used to be, hey, I only, like, when Jerry started watching United, that was one of the clubs that you could watch really like a lot of, was United. And for me, it was a lot of with Spurs was, hey, once they were in Champions League, it became a lot easier to follow for sure. And that definitely upticked my interest, was being able, as Tom was saying, watching them in Europa. It's really hard to get your team's games until about 17, 18. And now you can watch almost every single game, if you have the NBC or the Peacock, I guess, at this point. So it is one of those things where exposure is a big part of that. So for anybody looking for a club, it is hard to find those same sort of, click-ins, because you can feel like, hey, I'm almost, picking on reasons that I feel connected, but it's not really there. Whereas when you'll know. And it is one of those things where, like, the wand chooses the wizard for sure, where it's like, hey, this makes sense. As Steve said, sometimes it takes going there. Sometimes it takes just clicking in, finding the right coach who says the right thing, and then kind of following that story or following a certain player, and then really growing into that mystique and reading more about the club and having it all.
We're not even 20 minutes in, and Drew's already throwing like Harry Potter into the.
Yeah, there you go.
I just want to add on to what Drew said. Tim Howard was one of my favorite U.S. men's national team players. Sure. So picking Everton, it's like, well, he just came off this stellar performance against Belgium. He plays for Everton. This just makes perfect sense. So anybody looking for a team, follow your favorite player. Follow that team a little bit more than others, and you might just find that team.
Mm-hmm. So I'm saying Swans, Steve, ride them up. Get with Carl, ride the Swans up.
I do have a pretty cool Spurs story from Australia, but I'll save that for another time.
I want to add to this a little bit, because one of my mottos, I should say, I have a whole lot, writing a book, but one of them, when it comes to supporter culture, is that players come and go, but supporters will be there forever and ever. We will never change. and so you do need to feel like the club fits you. So I think that might be a good way to start, Tom. But I definitely wouldn't be, just like Steve said, it wouldn't be something that keeps you there. It's the
Yeah.
feel, just like you said with Everton, it just feels right. And when you said that, it's like, okay, this guy's for sure. Everton was meant to be your team, and I think that's the mentality that you all have to have, especially for something like this. Like as young as San Diego Loyal, where yes, there's some fantastic players, and you might be like, oh, Landon Donovan, I followed him, so this is why I'm going to support Loyal. Well, coaches come and go too. So keep that in mind. Like players come and go. We will be around forever. So as long as you feel like you're home, this is your home, and hopefully that's how you feel. And talking about that, we haven't really had a chance to dive into players too much. And I want to ask you, Tom, as far as players go. Oh, Steve, do you have something to say?
I was going to say, before we get into players, I'd like to hear kind of the story of how you came into this role specifically, Tom. Like, how did you get in contact with locals, with Loyal? Like,
Yeah.
then let's jump into players.
I was talking with Chris Garcia. I forget exactly how it came about. I think he was at the EPL holiday party down at the Harp, where the locals had a little bit of presence there to build up some goodwill. So he sent me a picture. I said, "Hey, how do I get involved? Even if leadership's probably filled up, I just want to be involved with this, help it get off the ground." He said, "Well, they have one spot open. I'll get you in contact with Steve." And Steve and I had prior contact before over the summer during the Women's World Cup down at Petco and down at over at O'Brien's. So we started messaging. He said, "Hey, we got director of stadium operations." I said, "Well, I want to do that. Here's my credentials. I work for the Gulls and operations. I've done different operations stuff in college, and I want to be in sports. So let's do this."
Yeah. So then, how did it feel like? I mean, obviously, then it came about. Number one, when we had that role open and you came in contact with me and you kind of gave me your resume, like, I do this for the Gulls. I'm like, oh well, there's some qualifications there. Number one, you were fit. I knew you from the World Cup in the summer. That magical Sunday where we had the Women's World Cup.
That was a whirlwind day.
At like 6 a.m. and then we had the Gold Cup final that night. That was an epic day. But yeah, I mean, that was a natural fit, and it just really, really worked out. So I'm super stoked it came about.
You told me about him, Steve, and I was like, that's not real. We were like,
Right.
oh, we need a person who has this experience. And like Jerry had always told us, put the feelers out and people will show up and come. And so Jerry was always a believer in this. And I was always like, where are the people going to come from? We need to find more people. So yeah, Tom is just one of those people who's, you put the feelers out, you talk to the right people, you're in the right, circles and the right people by talking to friends of friends and saying, hey, this is, who we're looking for. You find the right person who is, qualified, not only in having sports operations experience, but also somebody who has the right heart for the sport and kind of supporters culture. So it was pretty cool to have that kind of click in. And so, yeah, man, it's been fun to watch you kind of wrap your brain around dealing with what a professional club looks like and how they want to interface with us as a, kind of volunteer, entity in terms of like time and effort and all that kind of stuff has been fun. But it's been pretty cool to have you, be the person leading that. So
Totally.
Yeah, and this has just been all with everybody in leadership. It's just been all new. I'm not used to being the guy in charge. I'm more of a follower. Let's get this done. But now I'm just like in charge of it. It's helping me. It's letting me grow into it.
Yeah, that's rad. And I think one thing that you could maybe offer a unique perspective on, I think we've all talked about it in our own sense, is like, and we keep living vicariously through that March 7th match, but how rad was it to kind of show up early, have early entry, help set up the TIFO, help set up the flags? Like, can I hear your experience from kind of your eyes?
Yeah, it was humbling in a way. Like you guys have put in way more work prior to me joining, so I had a small taste of it.
It takes a village, man. It takes a village.
Yeah. And just watching it go from starting the tailgate, getting that set up, people rolling in, getting the section set up with everybody, even though I couldn't be there to get the TIFO in, which I really wanted to do. But being there, rolling it out pregame, making sure it wasn't shaking, even though people don't listen.
Yeah.
Don't shake. But just seeing it all just happen it was something else because obviously being here, you can't do that unless you fly over to England or wherever your team is,
Right.
and just seeing it all happen, everybody just singing their hearts out, drunk, half drunk, sober, whatever, losing their voices.
I wasn't even drinking, man. I don't know what you're talking.
All right.
We don't drink.
They serve beer there?
No, this is a good Christian podcast. We don't. But just
Shit, yeah, it is.
everybody's singing all 90, getting to know more people, building friendships, building relationships. It's something else.
You know, one of the crazy things, and anybody that has gone through what we're going through now in building a supporter group and building a culture together, it's, you know, Drew said, yeah, Jerry always believed that, you know, you just put out feelers and somebody
You
will come.
told us that. I don't know if you believed it. but
Well,
you
that's
told
what
us.
that's where I'm headed with this. Is I would say, you know, just build it and they'll come. And in the background, I was like, I hope they come. And
I hope I'm right.
and you know what's crazy is with the locals, we've been so blessed, you know, being a Christian podcast that we are. No, we're just super lucky because the people that we've managed to somehow get in contact with that got involved, that wanted to get involved. That's the other cool thing is there are people that want to be a part of this, all fit in perfect. Like the experience that comes from a lot of these people, you would hope that maybe we're gonna have somebody that has, you know, dealt with merch before. Hopefully, we'll get somebody that has dealt with operations in a stadium setting before. Hopefully, we'll find people that know accounting. Hopefully, we'll know people. And all of a sudden, all of us got together, and it was like, you know, assemble, and everybody just fit into their position. It was ridiculous. This doesn't happen. It's just been
Only in Avengers movies. Yeah.
only in
Right.
Avengers movies. And even then, sometimes it doesn't quite work out. And I think it's working out here pretty well. So we're lucky to have you, Tom. And that experience is just, it's so cool. And you're saying you weren't used to leading, but you did such a good job. I can't wait to see where you take, you know, where you take it next. I think we're all just really, really lucky and excited to see that. But going back to what you just said too, is having it locally, right? You usually would dream, like, unless you fly somewhere to go and do it. And we want to bring that here, and it's so cool. It's cool to hear that from somebody else, because it's something that's always playing in our heads, in my head specifically, and just like, man, it's crazy that we're making this happen the way it's happening.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, we've always here in San Diego growing up, like we've always watched other cities' soccer cultures flourish, right? And we've never had that opportunity here, and that's what we're trying to work so hard on, you know.
Yeah.
But before we move on to players, and I this is my second before we move on thing, having gotten to know you through the summer of 2018 with the Women's World Cup, I know you meeting Landon was a pretty cool experience for you. Can you kind of talk about that a little bit too?
Yeah, so he's the first World Cup I remember watching was, I believe, the Germany World Cup. And that was USA's playing, go USA, support my country. After that, radio silence until the next cycle. Then the South African World Cup happened, and that's what set it in motion. The cardiac kids, that freak bounce on Robert Green from Dempsey to tie it, that insane comeback, disallowed goal from Landon. I believe it was Bradley. Anyway, and then that game against Algeria. I remember exactly where I was when Landon streaked down the field, scored that winner, that tap in, and just everybody going nuts. So from then on, he just was like, okay, well, he's the face. He's doing all this. He's my favorite player. He's doing everything. And then at the World Cup games, just meeting him, shaking his hand, just telling him, hey, your goal against Algeria sent me down this rabbit hole. I can't thank you enough for it. It was just one of the best experience I've ever had.
Yeah, and I mean, listening. Go ahead, Drew, please.
I was going to say, I remember the carpet, like the feel of the shag carpet in the room in the apartment that I was living in Milwaukee at the time during that World Cup. Like that's like how visceral that experience was for a lot of us, right? That it was this like tap in moment. And for those of us who had cared about soccer, it was ratifying, right? It was like, holy shit, this thing that I'm like telling everybody who's like, oh, soccer is not a real sport, blah, blah, blah. Like it's worth my, like, I'm right. Like I'm totally right. Like That's what it felt like. Or the people who were just like, oh, this thing is it's real. It's like you could feel the moment and how it related to people and just that electricity. And if you understood it and like you could see it in that moment, so you were again to bring it back to Harry Potter, you could see the magic at that point, and you were the Muggles, right? The people who don't care about soccer are like, oh, magic, platform 23 3/4, whatever. Like they don't see the platform, right?
Right.
You can put all the fail noises you want, but it's a pretty good analogy.
Wow.
But yeah, it's like that's to me that's really like what's pretty incredible about this is the community part of that in terms of having that accessibility to somebody who has created that kind of magic for us and vows to do that locally, which is pretty cool. And so I mean that magnetism is pretty cool to have that full bookend of, hey, the person who sent me down this rabbit hole who's now coaching my team. And we said managers come and go, but it's a nice kind of segue to kind of how does that inspire, I guess, what do you feel like we should do in stadium, I guess, moving forward in an ideal setting? Because we'll talk maybe a little bit about what we'll have to do, but in an ideal setting, like what as stadium ops guy, what is your ideal locals game look like with it? Let's pretend we're in a COVID bubble where we can do what we want, I guess.
I love that.
Free reign. We're there. We have no voice by the 10th minute. Like we're singing, we're drunk and happy and just cheering on our boys. But it's I couldn't tell you because that's just everything's just so different.
Yeah.
I mean, like,
yeah.
There's nothing else to say, right? I mean, it's like hard. The role that you initially signed up for and the one you wanted is just it's so different now, right? Like everybody, the goal was a packed section and everybody's singing together, one voice, shoulder to shoulder, drums and flags, like and even when we come back this year, even if we start the season at 15% or 25% or 30%, like whatever capacity actually is capable, like it's not going to be what everybody had in mind when we were building this in November, October 2019. Like it's going to be another season, maybe the end of this season until we really, really get that back. Maybe, but it's who knows, right? Like, so how do we deal with that in a pandemic? Masks. Okay, cool. But social distancing. Okay, cool. But then it's such a different, like, I just don't know what to expect. So like,
to summarize, we don't know if we're going to be able to march. We don't know if we're going to be able to have any pregame. We don't know if we're going to be able to, like all these things that are just, staples of the experience, that we've had thus far, the couple games, plus just the projection of the experience I think we all wish for. Right. To me, it is really hard, Tom. So I would say kudos to you for just kind of navigating and dealing with being, not on I wouldn't say on the bench, but definitely kind of having your wishes and wants put it somewhat to the side as we all kind of try and figure it out. So I appreciate you being there. But in terms of maybe things we can do to involve people, I know that you've been instrumental in helping at least get some chatter going, or at least being into the Discord as well and having some help there. And Jerry's got some ideas with our YouTube that maybe he'll dole out later. But there's ways of getting people an experience here, and I think that hopefully we can extend some of what your kindness and I think just your general raw energy when you're working with people to some of those avenues as well. So that's where we're hoping, again, as a group, to not just look at this year and say, hey, let's try and do it the way we want to do it, but let's adapt a little bit. And Tom has been a huge part of that. Whenever I've said, hey, man, let's do this different thing, he's like, hey, let's jump on it and get in there. So is there anything that surprised you in terms of stuff that you've taken on or stuff that you've looked at and said, hey, here's an area for stuff we could do as a supporters group that you just have the open floor right now to throw out in front of us on the podcast here?
No. So at one point I was thinking we should get like a Discord going, and then lo and behold, we have a Discord.
So you can thank Kyle for that.
Yeah. So I think I just have to think of things and it just happens.
Put it on the universe and it will.
Right.
Yeah.
But I've just prided myself on being a jack of all trades. I've, like I said, never been that leader, but if you ask me to do something, I'm going to give you everything. I'm going to do it for you. So then now being able to lead it is just amazing. So anything you ask me to, I'm going to do it for you guys.
Yeah.
Within reason.
So I'm just telling you guys, anybody out there who wants to bring stuff to the game,
within
do a flag, do a thing, do a sign. Tom is there to work with you, and dude, you can hear it. He's just there to figure it out and make it work for you.
Yeah.
Which is what I love about Tom. Jerry, do you have anything to add on the stadium front?
No, Steve. Can we talk about players now? Is that cool?
Sorry, I derailed you twice.
No, that was great. No, that was really
great.
good. And I'd rather keep that conversation going about kind of what we're aiming to do in such a tough situation. Like, people keep hearing it, but here's the thing: is we can literally just keep talking about that and how like feel bad for ourselves, but don't do that. Like let's move forward with what we do have and do what we can with what we have.
Yep.
And what we have right now are some players coming back. So before we talk about really just the new additions, I'm interested, Tom. Is there any players coming back that you're excited to see? Obviously, we're stoked on all of them, but is there maybe one or two that stick out of the returning players for this season?
Oh,
you're stoked.
Yeah, definitely. So as a goalie, you really want to have that good defensive line. So bringing Stillman back, that's a huge plus.
Yeah.
And then midfielder, defensive kind of role there, Morgan Hackworth. I really like how he came on at the end of the season, came on strong, helped the boys out, and just solidified it. Gave a little extra confidence out there.
Yeah.
Agreed. Yeah. One thing that I would also say, like, not even on the field stuff, but right when the season ended, and I think we mentioned this a couple weeks ago, that players' Instagrams is a place to be. Make sure you follow these players on Instagram, because after last season ended, Morgan Hackworth and Ben Spencer did like this epic road trip up the coast of California, and that was like so rad to see. And this whole time I was thinking, like, man, how cool would it be if we got both those players back? Like, they seem like such buddies that, they met this year, and now they're like road tripping and camping and, how this is so rad. And then all of a sudden announced both players coming back. I think there's a real like camaraderie within the squad, and I love to see that kind of stuff. Like, it's easy to say, like, players come and go and all this stuff, because, ultimately it's a business and players make money, and they're trying to provide for their families and their future, and they're going to take what they can to, especially in sports where you nothing's guaranteed. You can get injured in the next game you play and your career is never the same. But there's something about, like, these players wanted to come back, and I love seeing this kind of like, in the offseason, these players stayed in touch. And right now they're training again, Instagram. They're training right now, and formal training hasn't started. It hasn't. Like,
but they want to, right? They want to. It's like getting into spring training before.
Right, they can help themselves because they're in town and they love it. Like, Matt and Shannon both said they're going to start training. On our podcast 2-3 weeks ago, they said, they're going to start training in early March, and here they are, starting training by themselves on their own because they care. They want to get better. So I love to see this kind of stuff.
And that's going to rub off really well with all the supporters and putting the work, talking about, hey, let's bring a championship here in year 2.
And the new players, right? The new players we're bringing in. It's like, no, we're going to put work in.
It's already established.
Yeah.
The bar is set. Versus instead of having to set the bar like they did last year, now it's already set to carry it forward and build on, which is really cool. And Morgan's a great shout. He really feels like a San Diego guy. He's not, but he had that feel, right? He looks like one, but there is he could be a surf model for sure in another career if he wanted to.
Epic man,
for sure. Like, some surf brand is just waiting to sign him, right? Maybe us, right? We could be just
surf in Imperial Beach.
Yeah, right. Yeah, he just had that great work. I think you could see it come through, and you just want to see more. And so that's what's exciting in year 2 is we're going to get to see more of him in our shirt. Is what I'm excited about for him for sure. But we have a keeper now, so that's cool.
Yeah, finally, it's not me.
It's not you
or Tony.
I tried my best, dude. I tried my best.
So wait, but here's the thing. I heard that there's a couple of other goalkeepers. I mean, we kind of need more than just Trey Muse. I mean, he's great. Don't get me wrong. He looks like
need 2 or 3.
He looks like an octopus back there, and it's crazy.
Yeah.
You haven't seen some of his
Kraken, if you will.
Videos. Kraken.
Oh, all right.
Kraken.
Tacoma FC's short-lived logo.
Hashtag not good enough for Tacoma, or no, good, too good for Tacoma.
Good for Tacoma.
Hashtag is too good for Tacoma. That's what it is. Shout out to our buddies over at the Unnamed Soccer Podcast.
That was a pretty good one.
Tom, do you have any player that is coming in Like, let's pick one out of the 5 so far that have been announced. Is there one that sticks out that you're like, yes, this is fantastic for Loyal?
Corey, without a doubt, Corey.
Yeah.
Proven goal scorer, and we were missing that 3/4 of the season when we brought in Barry and Ruben and all the other guys, and just we have that now. Seeing his highlights, he's proven he's going to do this for us. He's going to take us to that next level.
Yeah.
Not only is he fantastic on the field, but off the field, you can tell that he's for the supporters, and he's going to be like hanging out with us. Like, that's the kind of feel that I get from this guy.
I love his engagement.
He's unique. Yeah. He's unique too. He's kind of a weird dude. As a weird dude myself, I appreciate that in another person. Like, dude loves flaming Dr. Peppers. Like, that's awesome. That's like a random thing. It's like, yeah, but like, who is that guy? But it's like, that's the guy you want to hang out with. You're like, I'll do that for a few nights. It's kind of fun.
It's so, like, it's good to know that the club itself was looking to sign Corey Hertzog since last season, right? Same thing with Jack Blake coming in as well. We have to mention
eyes on talent.
Jack Blake coming in, but so the club already had their eyes on these players, and being able to sign them now because it didn't work out where they were, whatever it may be. I think Corey Hertzog, again, shout out to Unnamed Soccer Podcast, he mentions that he knew he was coming for 2021 to San Diego. Like, he just knew it. And he knew that we were looking for him in 2020 to be in a Loyal jersey, but it just didn't work out. And he did say there's some drama. I won't get into it, whatever that means. Regardless, Corey wants to be here, and you hear it, you see it. Now I just can't wait to see what he brings. So I agree with you, man. Corey Hertzog is going to be one of those that still haven't gotten any word, by the way, about that trampoline, but we're hoping to hear back.
We'll get there.
Drew, can you
Blake too?
Story? Oh, dude, you're going to be involved with the trampoline, Blake, because that's you're going to bring that in.
Yeah.
So we have an.
Can we bring that to Grandma's house or what?
We got an open trampoline on request at Ricardo's doorstep and an open kiddie slide from Jack Blake.
Steve wrote a 3-page document. Submitted.
3-page document. I would.
There's angles of trampoline showing the breakdown of. As long as you're not 350 pounds, I'm sorry, we can probably make it work.
Can we get a kiddie pool for the slide? So those hot summer games when we score, we can just slide right in.
Or like a slip and slide. Yeah,
that's your job, dude. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
I got to run it through the president.
How many skate ramps you build? We got to get that in a slip and slide. There's your slide. Boom.
Perfect. Done. I'll get right on it.
We can give you a title that was in one organization that I was a part of once that was a befitting title, which is Fungineer. So your job is to funginate the fun.
Not even a word.
But you are your stadium operations director, but also Fungineer.
Got it. All right, I'll write that down.
Yeah, your job is to engineer fun.
That's gonna be on the board.
My gosh,
it's gonna go up in Twitter profile real quick.
Making a note. Yeah. No, but you mentioned Grandma's house, so yeah, we're obviously still playing at USC Stadium. How stoked are you at the prospect of what Loyal has kind of promised? Warren has been pretty public about making it happen, that we're going to get our own soccer-specific stadium. Like, what do you think about that?
It's interesting knowing how this city works. It took 300 years just to get Qualcomm torn down and Aztec Stadium to get to go. Yeah. So I'm excited to see where this goes. I believe Warren's going to put his money where his mouth is, and we're going to get this done. We're going to have a stadium. We're going to have our own section. It's exciting.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. I
mean, just go on real quick. Do we have to throw in Thomas Beck and TV? Did I say that right? I don't know. Beck and
you said it like 4 episodes ago, so I'm going to make sure you say it right.
Yeah, well, I can edit this, so whatever. I'm not going to do that. But TV, as I like to call him, he is a defender that's going to be fantastic for us because we do have already a solid backline, and he just solidifies it that much more.
We have a literal stone man.
Literal stone man.
Literal stone man defense.
And to add to that defense, we also added Ebenezer Khan. And from what I've heard, this guy is nuts. Like, that's not a name that we know, too much of. But from what I have heard through the grapevine and coming from Nate, actually, he mentioned that we have to look out for this guy because he's just so good. So yeah, those are our 5 additions. Again, of course, with Trey Muse in the back. My understanding is we're going to get at least another goalkeeper. I can promise you guys that. We'll find out exactly who it is pretty soon. And then maybe a third one. We may or may not know that, and maybe some other players. Because if I did the math properly, we don't really have that many so far. So that's I think 15.
We're not at 18 yet, so you still need a few more to crack a baker's dozen or whatever it is.
But yeah, talking about the back line a little bit. I mean, everybody knows Sal started back line last year, and then he kind of didn't play that same role. Maybe some injuries, but he started playing kind of more as a winger. And yeah, I mean, he's a little bit older from the USL spectrum, but traditionally through his MLS career, he was more of a winger or wing back or a attacking fullback. So him playing center back really surprised me to start last year. And in the last part of last season, he was kind of deployed on the right wing a little bit more. And I think he was much more effective. So I'm really hoping that these new signings in the back mean that we plan on playing Sal more in a midfield, right midfield kind of a role going forward. I really think he has a lot to offer going forward. And I think he was kind of pigeonholed in the back. So I'm really, really hoping that Sal, as the captain, has a little more role in the offense.
When he got towards the opposition box at the end of the year, that's when we were almost at our most dangerous to score. It felt like, just because he was able to have that final cross in or that final pass. The touch he can give on a ball is still very impressive. For somebody, it's just trying to get those spaces and have that speed. But when you're on the back line, it's very difficult to do that. So just tactically, it makes a lot of sense to free him up. And then you have somebody like Ebenezer who can come in and possibly even keep that back 3 while freeing Sal up to move forward. So very exciting. And my joke with Ebenezer is always something about the Christmas Carol. So I'll say he's very stingy with his defense. Just like
one thing that I did,
as long as he's not facing the Marley brothers. Go ahead, Jerry.
They talk a lot about how they're looking at players that can play in different positions because they want to be versatile and they want to be able to change things up on the fly if they need to. And a few of those signings are quite like that, according to what I've heard Nate Miller talk about. And, I think also Matt Hall mentioned it. They want to have some players that can play in different areas so that just in case we can move things around and change things on the fly. So I think they're trying to figure out right now, or still trying to figure out, what exactly this team is going to look like. But they have options, which is great. And I think I'm excited to see what they're able to pull off in 2021. I think everybody is already, throwing around the whole cup thing, but let's play game 1 first, guys, and we'll see how
get a few points.
Yeah, let's get some points first. No, but I'm excited to see what else is coming. With players and everything like that. One thing that I did want to kind of to bring it back to the to supporters. Steve, we recently had the Independent Supporters Council meetings. What was the official name for that?
It's the Independent Supporters Council Supporter Summit, I believe it is.
The Supporter Summit. And can you kind of tell us a little bit of what that entails and what it is? Obviously, this year was a little different, but what is the kind of the goal of the summit?
Yeah, so IC every year typically they host somewhere in the country, so it rotates between West, Central, and East. This past year's supposed to be Portland, hosted by the Rose City Riveters, but obviously pandemic. So next year's they're hosting the same city, same supporters. They held that over. But typically it's like, get together IC representatives, which we are a member of. We get 2 representatives, which is myself and Mr. Steck.
It was a default. Sorry.
It's a way to connect with other supporters around the country. Kind of a way to be a conglomerate and share ideas. Ultimately, there's rivalries and all that stuff, but there's no sense in why wouldn't you ride on the shoulders of giants to lift yourself up, right? Like, we are a very, very young supporters group. And yes, we did a big TIFO, and I have done other TIFOs for American Outlaws and stuff like that. But there's no sense in saying, hey, Sounders supporters group, Gorilla FC. Why have what have you guys done for tifos in the past? Let's pick your brain. Or LAFC 3252. Like, what are you guys doing for memberships? Like, there's a lot to be had about growing supporter culture around the country, and you shouldn't hold that to yourself. You should share those ideas. I shared a couple ideas that I think people picked up on for what we have done with locals regarding the very first year, how we offered 3 scarves. Number one, it gave our members, you guys, an option to pick and be invested. Number two, it gave us variety in our section. I mean, yeah, we had one game, but what would have been the very first year if we only gave you guys one scarf, we would have all had the same scarf, right? Like, it gave everybody the chance to represent something different in what you really wanted. So while it was a lot more work for myself, and I say more so Drew, so credit to Drew, and Eileen and Travis, shouts to both of those people.
A lot of work for them.
We took that on because we felt it was more important to our members. So like, ISC is very important. They also have a lot of contact with the representatives because they represent so many different groups. So they're very important with USL corporate. So the USL as a company, especially now with the USL Players Association and the CBA that is supposedly about to be signed, just from public information. Things are getting closer and closer and closer to actually being signed and playing. So there's a lot to be said there, right? Because they represent a lot of people. They've been integral with MLS Players Association, with that CBA.
When American soccer supporters in general, I mean, it's a lot about driving forward social causes too that we all, I think, agree on and say, hey, we uniformly, it makes it more powerful to where if you are a couple union or a couple supporters group in a city, for instance, or even, just supporters groups disparately, to have a union that can kind of benefactor both of us simultaneously, right? Yeah. Like that, it gives us a chance to say, hey, there's this common body between us and Phoenix, for instance, where Steve is now. Right. We travel there and say, hey, we have common language, we have common values, we have things we agree about, and even though we may not fully agree on possibly elements of what makes a good taco or a good IPA, we do agree on a lot of elements of what we think makes a great supporters culture or what makes soccer great in the United States. So I think that's the cool part of it, is just seeing a lot of those ideas, and even just simple stuff like, is this drum a good price? Is this, and just having those people to lean on when you have hundreds of other people in the United States doing the same thing we're doing, just gives you that perspective, or gives you an idea of where they might have fallen down or had issues before too.
And the point is, like, we as San Diego Loyal supporters and the locals, like, we haven't developed a true rival yet. I mean, because of the weird year we had, but it's safe to say that, going to MLS, Portland and Seattle are rivals, right? Like, there's no doubt that those are the two rivals, but in these ISC meetings and in ISC discussions, it goes beyond that, right? It's like, oh yeah, they do this and that's a cool thing, right? Like, the leaders of Portland Timbers and the leaders of Gorilla FC, which is the Sounder supporters group, like, they don't hate each other. Like, yeah, they see each other as rivals, and yes, they see their teams as rivals, and maybe that the everyday supporters see each other as rivals, but they don't. They respect each other. There's a respect.
They fight for each other's supporter space beyond in each other's stadiums. Oh yeah,
it goes beyond that, and there's a lot to be said about that. So before we move on, and before this becomes an old topic, in the USL specific breakout group, USLPA presented to us, myself. There were a couple of representatives from New Mexico United, Indy 11, Phoenix Rising, Red Fury was there. I'm sorry if you're listening and I'm leaving you out, but it was pretty cool. It was pretty cool to see their conglomerate and how they formed. USL, these players aren't MLS level salaries, but they're fighting for equality across the league, right? They're fighting for, let's standardize what we require for pitch standards. Let's standardize what we require for travel standards. Like, it seems kind of basic, but it's not. And it's not, it's something that we hold, I think, different. I mean, we're new to this league, right? But we have an owner that cares, but there are many owners across this league that don't care. And they're forcing their players and teams to stay at Motel 6s and take commercial flights that are full and or buses that are 12 hours, right? Like they're trying to standardize this and fight for it because these players should unionize. They should care about each other and they should fight for what's right? Like we go to these games and we want to pay $10 a game, but we also care about these players as people. And if we're going to fight, if we're going to fight for them on the pitch, we should also fight for them off the pitch because they're giving their all when they're on and what they're under contract for. So we should also support them in the same way. So it was pretty cool to meet those guys and kind of relate to them. And I look forward to more conversations and more meetings with USLPA and with ISC, the board there. I can't say enough about how much work they put in at the ISC board for this, because normally under a normal year, it's a weekend. It's like a Thursday night social through Sunday afternoon kind of thing. And this was 2 weeks of, digital, remote meetings and remote. It was a ton of work. So shouts to
when you missed one, you felt like you were missing out. Like you were missing a whole, like, why am I not there? Like, so it was really, really well done in terms of the content, and they made it available to everybody on YouTube. So there is a chance for everybody to kind of absorb this content, even if you're not in our position and you want to start a supporters group or you want to do whatever. You have them as a resource to give you a lot of blueprints of how to do that and how to do it well. So they're great people and just incredible. As a group for us as a resource, but I think, as Steve's saying, generally just as a lighthouse in American soccer, as I like to say, and make things lighthouses for different movements. They're definitely a movement for us as supporters and people like us.
Yeah, agreed. I mean, I don't know where to go from that. That's great. I mean, we're getting close to the 1 hour mark, you guys, and I knew it. I knew we were going to be able to fill a whole hour. Especially Tom, no, it's so good to hear, kind of your story and get to know you. And I know we made it kind of difficult for you and gave you a hard time, to get you on, and took way longer than it probably should have. But we'll have you on again, hopefully soon, and we can talk a bit more. I know there's, we'll keep talking about, Everton and I guess whatever else you want to talk about. Maybe not too much, but. No, but it's very important for everybody to know that being a part of ISC is not it's not a small thing. It's a really big thing, and it's really important for us, even in our infancy, to be a part of such a good group of people. Because as Steve explained thoroughly already, you have to learn from those that have already gone through it. For us to get to the level that I know that we can get to, that we all know we should get to, you have to have those conversations with people that have been there. And it's cool to see 100%. That, there's, right now, you mentioned that we don't have a rivalry, but you're kind of standing in rival ground right now, Steve, and that's what I've been told, Steve and Phoenix. So if anybody in Arizona, sees any sort of like orange and green, taggings on walls, especially surrounding a stadium where a certain team plays. It wasn't us. Just want to make sure to throw that out there, just in case. Gotta watch.
Steve might have a long lens camera of mine that I sent him out there with for no reason. I don't know why.
It might have
he doesn't even know about it until right now when I'm talking about it. He said he's kind of near the training ground. So
no, but what Jerry said, it wasn't me. No way. No way.
Him and Shaggy.
Before we go, let's give our kind of like final thoughts. Next week, hopefully, we will do another one of these. It's been kind of weird, but we are looking at having now and starting to have more events where you can participate. All of you that are listening right now will be able to be a part of it. We're still figuring that out. It looks like Thursday is the day that everybody kind of is available. That's the date we put out a poll, and Thursday seems to be the day that most people seem to have some time. So look out for some information in your mailbox as soon if you're members. If you're not, you should get some info as well, just through our social media channel. So make sure you follow that. Tom, man, any final thoughts from you before we call it a night?
No, I just thank you guys for having me on. Figured it was just going to be a running joke for a couple more months until you bit the bullet, but happy to be here. Happy to get this done.
Yeah, You're number one in our bullpen, man. We had,
Yeah.
we had to go straight
Thank you
to
for your
Blick.
time.
First guy up. First guy out.
I'm just glad we were
Yeah.
able to kill that joke.
Do you want to
Drew.
make an immediately dated score prediction for
Well, that-
tomorrow? Do you want to make an
Oh,
immediately dated score prediction? That's why I wore this jersey. I actually ran downstairs.
Oh, you're doing Spurs
And-
Everton already?
Wow. All right.
Wow.
It can be immediately dated. Literally, like the second this comes out, we'll probably be like, when we're playing.
I don't
Yeah.
think
Jerry
Tom
looked it up
heard you.
tonight.
Drew, what did
God,
you prediction?
score for the FA Cup, Spurs, Everton. Oh,
See, I would
God.
say 2-1 Everton in extra time because Spurs will just find a way to capitulate.
Oh, see, I was
Even
going to
with
say,
Kane on
I
the
was,
field.
Jersey.
I was going to go the opposite. Same score, 2-1 Spurs, because it's just
Ooh.
classic Everton.
Yeah, it's classic
Wow.
Spurs.
You got
Everton.
classic on both sides.
Wow.
Who knows
Yeah,
who's going to
pretty much.
screw up more?
Like the problem is Kane's coming back, but he's off an injury, and like, does he get injured again? And like that could happen 30 minutes in because it's a world of horrors for Spurs. So
We don't have a
FA
good
Cup or
goalie.
one of those cups. Something always happens to us. Same with Everton. So it's like this it's like unmovable force, like unstoppable object or whatever. It's
Right.
one of those.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's just, I mean, we don't have a goalie, so just put it on net. Olsen's going to slip.
We have a
Pickford's
drunk
gonna do something.
Frenchman, so yeah, it is what it is.
Steve, final thoughts. Let's move on, guys. Close this out. Come on.
It's immediately dated. By the time you're listening to us, we're both wrong. Steve.
My final thoughts are I am looking forward to what Jerry was talking about before. Some kind of interaction, online event with our members, you guys. We are looking for more engagement. So we want to hear from you guys. We want to be more interactive with you guys in our own way that we can. So look forward to that. Look forward to more information on memberships coming up. I will drop a tiny hint that the scarf design is done. Shouts to Travis Peterson. It is incredible, as fully expected. And so stay tuned. Stay tuned. Lots
It'd
to
be
come.
weird if we had somebody else design the scarf, right? That
Yeah,
would've been-
right. Of course.
that'd
But,
been really awkward.
it's awesome.
No,
It's amazing.
It's incredible as usual. He's just
Yeah.
not. I saw something. Another thing he did. Shout out to him for Potter Tub's logo, new podcast
Yeah.
name, but they got a new logo for. I saw the logo, and before I even looked at the fine print, I was like, "That's a Travis logo." I knew it was.
Well,
Travis.
and
I was like,
Tom,
ah.
you know John Gennaro pretty good, right?
Yeah, pretty. I wouldn't say
Saints.
pretty well, but I learned that he went to Saints when we were
Ah,
watching
cool.
a Padres playoff
Yeah.
game. But I know him, decent. Played
Cool.
one season of soccer, and just we've stayed connected here.
Oh,
and
right.
there.
Cool. Good guy.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. No, we'll get him in the section podcasting from the locals at some point as Lord Podcast himself to bestow our podcast with good record. But as Steve said, I think the ISC thing and the getting more people just to kind of talk and congregate the way we would normally at bars or breweries, we can't do. It's just something that's impossible right now to do at scale or do in a way that's responsible. So trying to simulate that in a way that feels authentic will be pretty cool to see what we're rolling out here. So stay tuned to Jerry in our YouTube page.
Yeah. Thanks for
So
that.
I will finally throw to Jerry for your final thoughts, and then please close us out.
No, that was enough final thoughts for me. I'm, as a matter of fact, never going to ask you guys for final thoughts ever again. What I'm going to do is halfway through the show so that we can get through them all. Just to make sure. I'm just kidding, guys. That's it. That's going to do it for us. Thank you guys all for listening, for hanging out. If you enjoy it, of course, please leave us a rating and review. It helps us with visibility and stuff like that, and get the word out about the supporters group, which is really important. And we want to make sure we bring in more people and show them what we're building here all together. So excited to talk to you all again very soon, hopefully. If you don't like this podcast, please don't review. Come tell me what you don't like. And then I'll go back and tell Drew. So with that being said, love you guys. For Mr. Drew Stack, for Mr. Steven Phoenix, and for Tom Blick, my name is Jerry Jimenez. Bye-bye.